this is the e-multiplier, which is one of the last activities that we have in EduGame expansion. And it's, let's say, a proud moment to also share some of our results and some of the resources with people beyond the consortium and the organizations that have been working with us. So a little bit about the project. So EduGame expansion is a cooperation project under the Erasmus Plus program funded by the Estonian National Agency, where partners from 6 different organizations came together for the last 2 years to basically further develop, test, adapt to local realities and to the international context, translate into 8 languages, and promote a collection of 12 different educational games that were tailored for the education and youth work fields. So we envisioned starting this process with taking a variety of games, escape games, escape boxes, live action games, simulations, different tabletops, and see which ones will maybe work in the education and youth work field better, how we can adapt them to local realities. Maybe we need to sometimes change some content elements of the games. Sometimes we needed to change some visual elements to make them understandable or understood across regions, across borders for the partner organizations, but also in general widely. And this was something that we started in December 2023 when we met in Slovakia, in Bratislava, with representatives of these 6 different organizations. If you are working in the regions or in the countries where these organizations are active, feel free to reach out to get to know more about what they do. But every organization is active locally, doing either some youth work activities connected with games or youth work activities not necessarily with games, but with broader non-formal learning or adventure education or coaching and other approaches. So with this diverse group of partners, we started our journey. And how did the project look like? The project timeline was fairly straightforward. We thought to break down the work of the project into 3 main output activities, and every sort of output package had this same similar logic. One was we took different games. We took 4 games for each output package, and we tested them locally. So each game was tested in every local reality, in Slovakia, in Estonia, and in Germany, to see if young people understand these games and understand the content behind the games in the same way, or there are similar challenges that we need to polish. And once we tested these games locally, we were collecting data from all the feedbacks, both from facilitators and game testers, to give us information of how it was to facilitate the game, whether it was straightforward or there were some bugs found, or youth workers and educators had to improvise a lot and were in situations that they didn't know what should happen right now in the game. And once this feedback was collected, we worked on polishing the content of the game, the rules of the game or the outlines, and also, of course, polishing the game visuals and the elements to make them print friendly. Yeah, to have all these 12 games as print to play as possible. And this was one of the premises of the project, making 12 tools accessible for youth workers and educators, because sometimes we do not have all the resources we want to print everything in high quality or to buy a lot of materials. So that was one of the aspects when adapting and working on these games. And once the games were tested, we hosted a training activity where participants from our partner organizations were coming to receive a bit of this hands-on facilitation training of these games, but also give us some final feedback of what is still there to be polished and to be optimized. And once the training activities were done, the participants were involved in disseminating the project results, meaning taking the games that were already polished and done and applying them in their working contexts. Some of our participants were doing game sessions inside of schools, some were doing inside of open youth centers, and some were doing on different community events in their local communities and their contexts. And even though the initial condition was to run every game at least once as part of dissemination, we also saw that some of the dedicated participants were using these games more. They were sharing them with their colleagues and involving young people into facilitating games, which we found something that is great for this project and for the context of practical field. And these work packages were built up in a similar way. So 2 years passed with working on 12 games. And as a result, we have them. We have games and we have some test data. So let me walk you quickly through the project results. So at first, why we concentrated on educational games? Because we understand and we see that educational games in general, are an attractive way to get young people's attention, to try something new, to not only test their rigid knowledge, but also give space for practical and hands-on experiences. And it also gives a little possibility for a fun intervention and doing something out of the norm. And in my personal opinion, and I believe colleagues share it, that having these little breaks out of the norm is something valuable also to boost some motivation, to boost some interest, and sometimes to also remind who are the different people in the classroom. Because we see in games some of the students who are less active in the general class setting then open up and are, say, shining during the gameplay phase. So with this strong belief towards educational games, we embarked on the journey, and now 2 years later, we have trained 54 educators who've been part of the training activities, international ones, and those educators, together with our partners, hosted 111 events. It's a beautiful number that turned out now. And those events had over 1,500 young people being the players of the game. So each of the games that I will introduce have been tested quite a bit of time and are constantly still being polished with maybe little wording, with little bugs being found, and they are updated. And that is maybe one of also the bigger results of this project, understanding that every game that we put out there in the youth work field is still a living organism, and organizations who design games should be ready to always get some extra feedback and find some ways to further develop the games, and perhaps getting more resources in the future to also promote them. And all these games are open source and easily accessible online. We'll share the link with you soon. And so far, in the last year or so, since the first batch of the games became available online, we had around 737 downloads from mostly countries within Europe, and also from many different cities in the partner countries of EduGame Expansion. So these are the numbers that we will for sure put into the report, but I believe what you are here for is to get to know a little bit of the glimpses of the games and the experience of practitioners. So let's do a little introduction of the 12 games that we have available for you. And we can divide these games in different modalities, let's say. And one of them is a bit connected to the overarching competences that they take, focus on. And this can be into literacy competence, because there's 2 games connected to media literacy, a bit of online safety. There are 4 games connected with civic competence, since they take a bit more look at social issues and things that need to be discussed and addressed in groups of also young people to have better future for all of us. And then the green competence, 3 games that take a look from simple idea of how to recycle correctly to a bit more complex and big issues of our role in the global economy and the interconnectedness of our consumption patterns and the effects on the environment. And the 4th topic can be the entrepreneurial competence, games that are directly connected to taking initiative, managing resources, managing money, or creating ideas, and understanding a bit of how to present yourself and how to present your ideas. So if you're working in any of these topics or overarching competences, you can maybe already pinpoint some games you would like to discover. And for the e-multiplier purposes, we decided to divide these games also into the level of accessibility, introducing them from easy to a bit more complex. And here I would like to share 2 disclaimers. That one of them, the criteria to divide the games from easy to complex, is mostly connected to the resources, the space, the equipment, and the people that is needed. Yeah, so the complex games mean that they just need a bit more materials to be printed, or they need a separate room that you can prepare in advance, and then you can take down, so a bit more space demanding things, let's say. Or some of the games are a bit more people demanding, because you need not 1 but 4 or 5 facilitators to run it smoothly. And the second disclaimer is, doesn't matter if the game is easy or complex, you as the youth worker or the educator, the teacher, have the knowledge to pass on in the debriefing stage. We would also like to pinpoint that every game is not a panacea for solving issues connected to these topics, but it's more of a way to get young people interested in the topics, interested to discuss, and then the game masters, the educators, have also the responsibility to unpack the discussions and the ideas behind the games, and of course acknowledge that every game is a simplification and every topic is more complex than just what we see in the game. So without further ado, let's dive into the games. First, easy games, things that you can run as one educator without any additional materials and resources, rather than a deck of cards and a few pens. You can play a game called Pitch Perfect that is both a game with its own rules, but also a tool that can be taken different forms in hands of educators. And it's a card-based game about generating creative ideas and pitching them. And essentially, the idea is to take the most complex combination of a target group and a need and create and pitch a business idea in terms of a service or a product. If you wish, you can also change it into looking at project ideas. You can change it into social initiatives. You can make it competitive. You can make it cooperative. You can omit game rules and only keep the idea of, hey, let's generate a lot of ideas, or let's pitch ideas and practice a bit of public speaking. So if that is something that you're working with or would like to have this dynamic way to boost creativity or kickstart some creative processes in your classroom, then I advise you to check out Pitch Perfect. Another simple game is a game on data security and online safety. It's called Who Hacked You? I like to think of it as this kind of hybrid of a Cluedo educational game where you need to figure out whether or how and to which um, little online scam you fell victim and who was the scammer. And the game is a fun way to have these war mechanics and battling each other out, trying to attack and to protect your online your digital safety and your data, basically. So this is a game where you also can play, have fun, and try to unravel a little mystery that can be played with groups of young people inside of a classroom or a youth center setting. The third simple game to introduce is called Terra, which is about recycling and waste management. This is the game that is for the most young audience that we have in the EduGame project. And this is the game that has gone through a lot of adaptations based on the recycling rules of our partner organizations inside. So you will find in every language version, you will find a different set of correct answers that was there done due to the current recycling, let's say, practices and rules. So this is a competitive game, but without kind of this cutthroat competitiveness. It's more of friendly competitive game, trying to get a bit of luck, but also trying to understand the peculiarities of where do you recycle, let's say, a piece of old magazine, or where do you recycle a greasy pizza box. So it's also a little bit about noticing these nuances, whether the trash that you want to recycle is clean or dirty, what is the material and where it should go. And this is one of the games that, in my experience, I see colleagues using a lot with young people, with children in the school, and also adapting the rules and sort of giving them a bit of replayability to remember what goes where, and then using some parts of the game to also check in the classroom if the kids remember what should be recycled where here in Estonia. The last simple game is called The Minimum. That is a game about research management and collaboration. So it is a live action game where a group of players needs to make decisions, needs to do some negotiations non-verbally, needs to at times make a leap of faith to see if the resources that are left in this post-apocalyptic world will be enough for everyone's survival. And it is a game for group settings, can be used as a team building in the classroom, can be used in an international project very well as a team building part, or as also discussing and understanding the management of resources, sharing of resources, and the idea of the ego, self, and the eco and the group. And going to the intermediate games, this is where we have a collection of maybe more complex topics, but also formats of games that need a bit more materials. One not so resource demanding game is Guess Who in Reality, that is on the topic of social inclusion. And when thinking about this game, I remember the game Guess Who, where you need to be looking at the visual characteristics of some characters to determine which one is played and which one is not. And in Guess Who in reality, the idea is to dive a little bit deeper, where nothing is about visual characteristics, but all are about the background that we might know, that is connected with gender, that is connected with age, that is connected with social background or family background of the characters. And it is sort of a card game, but can also be used as a tool in diverse ways to explore our own stereotypes or our own biases towards various groups, reflect on that, and also share opinions. We've been using this game quite a lot also in international settings, and it works very well because you can also see different views on different groups based on who lives where and with which kind of groups of people the players frequently meet, and about which groups of people players only heard and have maybe some biases. So this is a game that you would want to discover if you want to open the topic of inclusion. And then there is a game called Transylvania Corp that is a live action game, that is a game with a trick that you learn and after you play it, and you can play it only once. So I will not tell you a lot more of this game, just as the topic is to explore different workplace discrimination or favorism of some groups towards others. And the game is a live action game where players are passing different rounds of not interviews, but negotiations of salary raise and negotiations of climbing up the corporate ladder. So it's a little bit to explore how is work or life potentially in the big company when things are not very fairly distributed. The Story of You is the first escape box that we have in this presentation setting, and it is an escape box taking a look at global citizenship and interconnectedness of various supply chains and interconnectedness of consumption patterns that influence one or the other. It is a portable escape box that fits really on what you see in the picture, a few boxes with a few locks, and players basically go into the role of researchers trying to understand what are the effects of the global food transport, of fast fashion, and of the technological industry. What is the global influence of it? The second is an escape game rather than an escape box that's called Talent AI, which is a game to explore the basics of employment, employability, and passing job interviews. And the difference between an escape game and an escape box means that escape game, we expect to give a little bit more space atmosphere. So this game can be played in a small office-like room, or it can be played in a corner of a classroom. But what we need is to use some walls, a table, and a few shelves to play this game. So not anything that you will not find in any youth center or classroom, but still a bit of moving to create the atmosphere is needed. And the game is an introduction to basically key ideas of employability and the trends that are important nowadays for landing yourself a job. The next one is the Truth Seekers, an escape box that can be played from small groups to a full class at the same time. This is one of the most optimized escape games that we have here in terms of scalability, and it takes players on an immersive journey of exploring media manipulation techniques and on dishonest use of information and playing on biases of potential consumers. This is one of the games that has been played a lot internationally, including the European Youth Event this year, and we have it being played with also both high school students and educators and youth workers, and the feedback's been going quite positive. And we move to the demanding games, the last few games to share with you. One is Secrets of Class 8A, an escape game that I personally really like. It's connected to the topic of bullying. It is set in a classroom and can be played by a small group of students that try to unravel a story of a bullying case within a classroom. I enjoy it because the game gives strong emotions and quite good immersion into the atmosphere, and it is set in a classroom setting. The downside is that if you want a team to play, you need to take over a full classroom and set it up, meaning taking away some of the bags or personal items of any students to have this kind of clean classroom, and then you place a lot of different backpacks, printouts, and materials. I do encourage, if you're working with young people in a school, to try and find a day where you can play this game, because it brings emotions and it opens a topic of bullying from quite a strong perspective. So that is one of the games. If at any moment you have questions about games, shoot them in the chat. We will, at the end, share the answers. Moving on to Money Moves, which is a game about financial literacy and a very active and borderline chaotic game of trying to save up money for a dream vacation or a dream purchase, where groups of friends try to collect some money to buy a caravan or to get themselves motorbikes or things like that. And the game explores the basics of how banks and interests work, how shares work, the idea of trying to predict rise or drop of shares, and also taking a look at the news that can give maybe some hints of what could be the trend in the future. And it's also a game of exploring growing money versus having extra work, or doing both and trying to find a strategy to earn the biggest amount of money possible for you to fulfill your dream. And this is a game that needs several facilitators to be played. And then we have Ticket to Holiday, which is the last game to present. Ticket to Holiday is a game about social inequality. It is one that we use a lot in also international events, but also in schools. It's a game that is extremely immersive because young people take up a role that they didn't choose, and they need to survive a few months until the holiday period starts. And in this game, the difficulty is that you need not only quite a few game masters, but you also need a few rooms to manage the game and play it to the fullest. Because a lot of the game is happening not in the rooms, but in the corridors between the rooms and in the interactions between the players. And this game is joyful, but it also requires quite a lot of facilitation from the game masters and support roles, if you have them, because a lot of it is on improvisation and reaction based on what the players decide to attempt, and how to, if at all, challenge the system, challenge the employers, and talk about this inequality. So this is a game that I definitely recommend playing if you have a summer camp and time to also prepare a team to run it. If you maybe have some activities in the school or a youth center where several youth workers can be involved in setting the game up, or if you have a group of active young people who can take up some of the roles within the group and support you as the main facilitator. So these are the 12 games of EduGame that are available and that we wanted to give you a quick glimpse of, yeah, and some keywords about each game. And we also invited a few of our participants that were in the trainings, and gladly they said yes to come and share a bit of this perspective. How was it to run? What are maybe the challenges for everyone to pay attention, and what are maybe the benefits that they experienced from using the games? So I will introduce and pass the microphone to Christina, an educator, a teacher from Vabadus Ecole here in Tallinn, Estonia, who's been our participant in the second training course and in the second work package of EduGame, and who not only used the games quite a lot, but even translated one of the games into Ukrainian that we can see here on the picture. So, Christina, the floor is yours.
Hello, everyone. As you know, I'm Christina, and I'm from Vabadus Ecole. There is a school with a lovely name, like the School of Freedom for Ukrainian refugees in Estonia. And yes, I have a privilege to share my experience today with EduGames. Actually, the total amount of students for the last year was 137. Yes, so we introduced this game with my colleague to our students, and I can say that it went really cool, and our students were super satisfied and super excited to play the games. If we are talking about adventures, okay, firstly, I would like to say the name of the games that we played. There was a talent AI who hacked you, to get a holiday, and also Terra. If we're talking about advantages of EduGames, the first advantages and the main advantage is a great variety of topics. So you can meet your needs, whatever your teacher, or I'm sharing my experience as a teacher. Yeah, so whatever you teach, and you can find something interesting, useful for each subject. That is really perfect for regular classes and extracurricular activities. Our experience was not only with our students, but with students from Tallinn Evropa, that is an international school for international students. We hosted them and organized sort of collaboration with them. And when they came to our school, we played this game with them. And also we used it for our students' council at our school. And I highly recommend you to use this Ticket to Holiday, for example, game for such projects. And also all these games, they develop a wide range of different skills, yes, and you can use it for critical thinking development, for example, for creativity, and just to spark your students' curiosity, or to, if you need a refreshing change for your regular classes. There are a lot of advantages, but we also have a few challenges. And first of all, there is a lack of time. To be honest, I guess that it's not a secret that that's a lot on teachers' plates. And lack of time is a huge challenge, because we need to prepare things for some games, and you need to prepare yourself, to prepare your students, and you need to find the time spot to run the game. Luckily, we have the shocking office and shocking group members who shared ready-made games with us. So we skipped this problem, and we were not forced to prepare everything ourselves. But if you have a couple of hours or extra hands to help you, then it's not a challenge for you. The second challenge that I can mention that is a limited amount of sessions per class, because if you're talking about tabletop games, for example, it's really interesting to play this game only once or maybe twice per each class. But if your school is, or organization, let's say this one, yes, it's if it's huge and you have a lot of colleagues who would like to join you, for example, to run the sessions, then you can share games, and it makes sense. But if you have prepared a huge game, you did this job, and then you can run the game only once per class, and that might be a challenge as well. And as Pavel mentioned before, some games need a little bit more time to prepare and the force to prepare, as Ticket to Holiday, for example, live action game. There is a complex game that needs a little bit more space, a little bit more participants, facilitators, and preparation. So you need not only to run this game, you need to prepare your team to run this game with you, and you should explain to everyone, to teachers, for me, and in my case, you need to explain everything, you need to answer all questions, and sometimes a lot of questions occur like during the explanation time, because like, why, what, could you remind, could you repeat, and that takes time. And also you should explain that this game is really cool and exciting, and it is worth it, it is worth this time. I mean, for teachers, not for students. For the students, it's super cool and mind-blowing. They're engaged to the process. And if we are talking about my recommendation, then in my case, with my students, that was a great decision for me, for example, to master and to learn the topic, to discuss this topic in advance, and to discuss the vocabulary, to translate something, because there were some complicated words which actually needed an extra explanation for students, especially if we're talking about some terms like computer literacy awareness terms, like who hacked you, or for example, for talent AI. So there was a sort of job interviews and vocabulary of different characteristics of people and their skills, or etc. So the next one is to visualize the game's instructions, at least core instructions, because during each session, okay, let's imagine the situation, in the real life situation. I don't need to imagine it. There was a situation when you have the group. In my case, likely there is a group of students. There is not the full class when we have 20 plus students here. I have no more than 12 students in my groups. So you're explaining the instructions, you're giving these instructions, and then you have, for example, 4 or 3 groups of students who are playing the same game at the same time, and then a lot of questions might occur during this during one session, and there is only one facilitator, and you should explain to everyone separately, and that might be a bit complicated for teacher. So to visualize the game's instructions, I mean, to draw something, to draw, I don't know, the core things that they should remember, and in order just to avoid this repetition all the time during the session, I like Who Hat You game, because the core instructions are already visualized on the player's cards, and that is a way easier to run the game when you have these instructions. And if you don't have this option, then I would highly recommend you to do it yourself. And the last and maybe the main one, so let your students to run the game sessions themselves, let them to feel themselves like a facilitator. That was my experience with Tallinn Europacall, for example, because for the first time we played Ticket to Holiday when our teachers were facilitators. And for the second time, my students were facilitators, and it engaged and inspired them a lot. And they were really satisfied with their own results and their own involvement. Overall, like, let's conclude that I highly recommend everyone to use Edu games as a sort of refreshing change, and to spark the students' curiosity during your lessons.
Thank you very much, Christina. And I think, yeah, there's a few valuable points, especially connected with timing and the resource. And that's also one of the things. If you want to use games for the first time in your lesson, for sure, plan a bit of time in advance to prepare and get ready. And let's move to our second speaker and second example from the EduGame project is Rada, that is joining us from Sofia, from Bulgaria, who's a youth worker and been using games a lot in the youth work context, not with the classroom. So Rada, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much, Pavel, for introducing me. Can I get a hello from everyone in one way or another, just to feel your
Hello.
Okay, in the chat here as an emoji. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, so the first thing, can we move on to the next slide so I can see it? Okay, so first I start with the advantages. The games are very multifunctional in a way that me as a youth worker, I'm always on the run. So I have played these games in schools. I played them in the youth center. I played them in hotel lobbies. I played them in my house. I played them in different countries. I played them on Erasmus projects. So I played them many times, so in many places. Not all of them. I've explored around 7 or 8, but I played them multiple times. So not all of them, but good enough. I played them with different age groups and with different, yes, with people from different backgrounds. So I played them with a lot of different people, and they are multifunctional. I tested this. They're easy to be carried, which is very important for a youth worker because you're always on the run, as I said, and also you can always catch someone on the way. For example, for me, the card games like Pitch Perfect or Guess Who in Reality, I always bring them with me any place I go because there's always someone that might be interested, and it happens like this. So I catch people without them even attending that they're going to play a game. For example, we go to a hotel conference and I'm like, oh, I have this game. Do you want to play? They're like, ah, yes, okay, great. So yes, just take them with you no matter where you go. They open a lot of different social topics and personal processes, which is an advantage. It can also be a challenge. So the facilitator must be ready to have a lot of conversations on different topics, and you must be prepared because some of these games open some really important topics. So make sure that you know what you're going to get in the good way of it. And that's it pretty much because the advantages are a lot. For me, I found a new world with these games. So thank you very much for introducing me. Since Bankia last year, my life has changed. Okay, challenges now. Game-based learning in Bulgaria is a challenge still. People don't know what is this. They sometimes say, oh, what, you're playing games? This is for children, or the children don't need this to learn, to study. So this is something that we have to explain and change the mindset in our countries. I don't know how it is in other places. Some of them maybe, are one step ahead, one step forward. We are still a little bit behind, but now we're sending info packs to schools, and we are actually breaking this stigma on playing games and game-based learning in Bulgaria for all ages, not just for teenagers. People's attitude toward learning and the debriefing part is sometimes hard because they just think, oh, okay, I played the game, goodbye. So you have to prepare them that this is not just a game, that they will have to stay, and sometimes they're in a hurry, and you're like, but wait, the most important part. So this is something that I also wrote in the tips. The second part, being clear about the duration and the idea of the played game. So you have to make sure that people know that they'll be involved in a process which has to be closed. They can't just disappear. And time and space, as mentioned already, we already know some games you need more time, more preparation. But if you want to take out the advantage of it, you must give this. It's like in life, you can't always have everything and get everything you want. So about the tips, first you can use some of the game elements. We tried this a couple of times because we go to schools. Sometimes we have only 40 minutes. So, one game which has, let's say, 60 or 90 minutes based on in the instruction. You just take out some elements, you improvise, you adapt it. So this is a great advantage of some of the games. Being clear about the duration and the idea of the played game, as I already said, you have to be sure that the people who sit with you on this table are ready to be involved in this process, and they really, really want to be there, or at least that they would appreciate it at the end, even if they don't want it from the beginning. And the last one is from professional to personal life. For me, it's very important for all of us to know that we can actually play these games with our beloved ones, with our friends, not just as a professionals, but these are tools, powerful tools that you can use with people outside of your professional area. And for example, my friends, they all enjoy them, and it doesn't matter if they're educators or not. They are still, try to popularize it think outside of our boxes, which is, we are educators, we are youth workers. And just the most useful tip is have fun, because when people see that you really enjoy the game and you really want to show them this game, it's like a wave. It gets contagious, and you can also make them involved. So if you really like this game, we can see it. Yes, maybe I was a bit speed diving, but I played the games a lot. I really like them, so that's why I think that I can spread them successfully. And yes, also make sure that you know the games well before facilitating them. That's very important. But this is for, we all know it. This is important to bring the experience to the people. You have to take care of the experience itself. So that's it pretty much. Thank you.
Thank you, Rada. And you also pinpointed a few important things, especially with opening a Pandora box with the games. Make sure that you can then close it if you open any difficult topics. Make sure that you have enough time and think it through as well in your head, or practice it before. So thank you very much for sharing. And we will also want to give some space to our partners to share a little bit of the best practices, because as coordinators in Shocking Group, we've been working with educational games for a while, but for some of our partners, it was this first kick start of using games actively, and there is some new interesting cases there. So let's move to, first of all, Bulgaria, to Diliana. The mic, the screen, and everything digital is yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Very nice to see you all. And I'm very happy that a lot of people from Bulgaria are joining this event. But not only, because we spread the word also to some international partners. So very nice to see you in the chat. And we will be also available to chit chat anytime, because this is really worth sharing. And for us, me representing the Maverick, the partner from Bulgaria, we were thinking a lot about what to present and how to present it. But organizational wise, I was thinking that it's worth sharing our example, because really the game-based learning and even non-formal educational methods are not really something popular in Bulgaria. And for us, it's is a bit of a challenge also to explain first what are the games doing, and then try to deliver a very full and nice session. What I wanted to share with you is some experience that we were facing, actually speaking to educators, speaking to teachers, giving examples to students of non-formal education or social studies, and also to career consultants. These are the three examples that I want to share in these 3 minutes with you. So for us, yes, once again, game-based learning was something new. It's something new within the country. For that reason, we said, okay, we will better create a small website of our organization and actually present as much as we can to you, to not only to young people, but to educators and people who are ready to get these opportunities. First of all, now I'm in the role also of the coordinator of the creation of the first youth center in Sofia, in the capital of Bulgaria. And now I run a team of 10 people who are youth workers, psychologists, career consultants, mediators. So my role in the very first days of meeting these people in the team was to introduce the games to them. And this was a great idea and a great breakthrough, because all of them, they liked a lot the tools. First of all, because as also Pavel said, they are very accessible tools. They're very easygoing tools. And also having the chance to print the games and have the games with me during this project, this was one of the first tools that my colleagues in the youth center was able to start using in their daily work. Not all of them were trained for youth workers. This is another big topic in our country, but this was one of the methods that they were really capable of acknowledging and starting to practice. The second example, what we were doing is to introduce this to teachers. We made a brochure, this portfolio with the games that we translated all the informations. By the way, it's available in 8 languages, so you might also check if your language is also available. So all the information is in your language, and people can easily get to know some information through this online or digital, or paper brochures, when we tried also to give them more info and show them the materials. People get very excited when they actually can see, can touch, and can experience this. Saying that was a very nice example. We were invited by our national agency to one training of career consultants. We have a quite big community of career consultants in Bulgaria who are also excited to hear about more tools, new topics, new opportunities to put into practice in their daily work. It was very nice to share some of the games, especially those who are connected with the topic, like creativity, like entrepreneurship, like financial literacy, also like some games are helping to prepare young people for the new challenges in life in their future. So it was a great success also for them. I'm really happy that we had this chance to work together in this lovely team. And I should say that this is my favorite project so far in my life. So thank you also for the team for creating this opportunity. And now we'll be very happy to share more because it's really worth sharing. So I'll be around if you have more questions as educators, as people who might consult you of how to do it in your reality. I'll be here around. Thank you very much for the chance to share my experience.
Thank you, Diliana, and welcome to the Club of Game Users. And let's move to Germany. Jessica, on behalf of Spiellabor, what is your recent experiences?
Hi, everyone. So, yes, I also have 3 examples for you, and I'm super excited to tell you what we did, just examples. So, we played these Edo games in different contexts, in all different contexts you can imagine. So, one was Ticket to Holiday, one of those more advanced games, or let's say more games that require a little bit more space, a little bit more facilitators. And it was so much fun to using this game in international youth exchanges. So, of course, we played it in the local youth club, but later on, we started to work with it in international projects. And what we did with this one, the target group was 15 to 16 years old. We had a group from Portugal and we had a group from Germany. And it was so cool that we had the game outlines and the game materials in different languages. So we had it in English, we had it in German, we had it in Portuguese. And what I could do before we played the game, I was sending the game outlines in Portuguese language to the Portuguese group leaders. So they were able to read it in their own native language, which helped them a lot to get into it because they have never played the games before. And as we have learned, this is a challenge. Normally, when you facilitate a game, it helps a lot when you have played those games before or when you have at least a little bit of practice. And those group leaders, they had no practice at all. So it helped a lot, not giving them the English outline, but the Portuguese one. And then we distributed the roles, the facilitation roles. And what can I say? It was so much fun because you really get into the mindset. And what helped us a lot for those 15, 16 years old students, when we read to them the intro trailer, we decided we will not do it in English. We had the rules of the game written down in English, and we were explaining them additionally in German and in Portuguese. And when we read the intro trailer to them, which was important for them to get into the game, into the role, into the mindset, we did it very slowly, first in German and then in Portuguese. And because we thought if we would do that in English, English is not their mother tongue. So this could be a little bit complicated for them to really get the setting. And this is something I would give you as a tip if you play it in international contexts. Also, what was super fun, after the game, when the game is basically finished, you get out of the role. So you do this kind of de-rolling and and then you do the debriefing. And what happened in the days after we have played the game, some people really used some elements of the game as a running gag. So in Ticket to Holiday, you have different role types, let's say, and people really, it's about social justice, and people really, even 1, 2, 3 days later, started to fight for justice, and we had this little running gags, and it was so cool to see that, how people behaved even days after. Okay, next example that was also pretty cool, because the first game we played in the youth center, Ticket to Holiday in the youth center, and Money Moves we played at school. And we played it with different classes, the same grade, and it was crazy because this game was so different depending on the players you're playing it with. It was the same age group, 2 different classes. One class was out of mind, and the other was super into the topic, basically. So they, in the first round, one class, they really started to, some kids, not all, to overcome the rules. So my tip for you is get get prepared, anticipate what they might do. In Money Moves, you have different facilitators, and one facilitator is an employee of a bank. And this employee of a bank, who normally helps the customers in this bank, the kids decided, hey, okay, we will try to make a bank robbing. And then they really put a mask, and then they faked a little gun, and then they came, and then they wanted to rob the bank. And so this was not part of the rule. It was not part of the game outline. So my tip for you is, kids are creative, and so they are sometimes also in the game. So be prepared for the unprepared. And yeah, what else? So card games, you have already heard about Pitch Perfect, Who Hacked You, all these card games, Guess Who? They are also perfect for the youth club, but what Radka told you before, it's easy to just take them and put them out of the pocket and play them, invite just other people to play them wherever you are. So this is also our recommendation. So I think my 5 minutes are over. We'll stop. We really enjoy the games. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jessica. And great to hear that young people are taking the games and twisting them to their realities and to their creativity. And let's move to Eduera, our Slovak partner, who would like to also share an interesting take on how they use the games. Daniela, take it away.
Thank you. So, hi everybody. And yeah, as it was said, I'm Daniela. I'm from Eduera organization. We are based in Slovakia. And also for us, or at least for me, definitely, it was the first time using game-based learning and playing games with our local youth. And when I say local youth, for me, it means mostly university students. So maybe not as young as other members had connected to, but since I work at university, it was the easiest to connect to them. However, my colleagues also played the games with the high school students, secondary school students. Also, we played games amongst our partner organizations, all here in Slovakia. But the experience that I will be talking today is about playing games with university students at a university in Košice, where I'm working. And our university, for starters, to introduce it, not to make a promo, but the thing you need to know about our university to understand why I am trying to explain this best practice is that we are very internationalized. We have more international students than Slovak students. And since we are in Slovakia, unfortunately or fortunately, depends what perspective you have, we have many Ukrainian students. So lately it has been a problem, especially with the discrimination. And as I said, we have more international students than Slovak students, so conflicts are happening. The cultural differences are visible, and they cannot understand each other properly when not introduced and taught how to accept each other. And for me, playing these games in this international context, even in Slovakia. So basically, yes, we have game in Slovak language, but most of the time I wasn't playing it in Slovak because I was connecting students that cannot speak Slovak but study in Slovakia, then Slovak students, and of course we also have a lot of Indian students. Those Indian students also are looking for a better future for themselves, so it's not just visiting, they are not just visiting Košice or Slovakia, but they are trying to also find work and stay there and be part of the labor market. So we connected these three groups via the games because they are also already included in sessions together, in class sessions. They need to attend classes, but they usually don't talk to each other. They don't interact. So we tried this method at the start of the beginning year of semester to play this game, especially with the first year students because they usually don't know each other. They are very playable. So we played these games and we realized that these games go way beyond just this project and learning outcomes about the topic of game. But for us, it brought cultural understanding and collaboration, because many of the games are collaborative games. So they needed to come together and play the game as a team. So it was very pleasant to see, and I was surprised with how easy it was for them to connect, to communicate, and it was quite visible that at the beginning of the class, the atmosphere, the environment, or just the vibe of the class wasn't the best, but at the end of the game, when they get to know a little bit of each other, and when they played and joined, and when their prejudices and every doubts they had fell down, they could be just themselves or the role they played without their nationality. They really connected and made a positive interaction. So for us, or for me, the best experience was connecting these groups together and going beyond the initial outcomes of the projects, which was creating educational games and then playing them to educate youth. For us, or for me at my university, it was the social impact that brought it in. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniela. And definitely the most surprising use of these games with also the place and the target groups. And happy to see these effects. That having the habit of playing together is something that can also support bonding and support this social cohesion. So as I see in the chat, people are asking where to get the games. And in the last few minutes, this is what we have for you, that all these games are available on playversity.co website. You can choose. Don't be scared that it's going to look like a shop. The games are free. You choose the language, you put it in your cart, you check out, and you will receive the printable materials. Each game has a session outline and game materials. So the outline is meant for you to understand how the game is played and how to facilitate it. And all the materials are the things you need to print and produce at home or at work to be able to play it. So playversity.co, it will be available there as long as we exist. And if you are curious, because you heard that it's important to play games and be ready with the games to facilitate them, maybe you also already use some games and you would like to network and showcase some things, then we have also a learning opportunity to share with you that EduGame will not finish with this Key Action 2, but it will continue in the legacy of some seminars and shorter activities. So there is one in April that we are planning to organize in Poland with a partner organization named Nausicaa, to have an international seminar for practitioners that use games. So if you have some games that you created or you use a lot in your practice and you would like to bring them, show and tell, facilitate a bit, and exchange games, then keep your eyes open for more information on playversity.co, where we will publish the call with all the details of possibilities to join this learning opportunity that will be open for all Erasmus Plus program countries. And with this information, you know about the games, you heard some tips from practitioners and cases from organizations, you know where to find these games, and it is exactly the time we had estimated for this multiplier event.